Teachers Day, we have got Professor Amit Kumar Sharma, who is going to speak on his experiences and his work on Indology, culture, and cinema. Since 1978, he has taken a long period. So, I mean, even we have actually requested him that so that he can share his experiences on this particular work, his ideas, so on and so forth. So today we have our moderator, Professor Vivek Kumar, and thanks for coming and thanks for joining this particular special lecture. Over to you, sir.
No, thank you very much, Aitri, and with me and chairperson. This is a very, very,
Tribal studies.
this is a very, very important occasion that we are meeting, and we requested, sir, our guide, our friend and philosopher, Professor Amit Kumar Sharma, one of the senior most professors in the center, and also a student of the campus. So he doesn't need any introduction, but what I like to say a few words, because these two books, which I have not yet got actually, though many were privileged to get, but I've seen actually on the tables that they have a very different paradigm for the production of knowledge. I think if you look at the paradigms, that is a civilizational paradigm, which actually Professor Sharma has been practicing, and a very different universalistic vantage point in the production of cinema and culture on the one hand. Usually we talk about Western, theaters and Western epistemology for understanding the cinema and culture in the Indian society. But Sir has taken a very different path to understand, beginning from the folk culture in the sense how folk culture is important to understand the rasas of we call them as ras basically, how that has to be mixed in the Indian society and culture for the production of cinema. And one day he was also talking about, the storytelling has been a very, very long tradition in Indian society. The story of grandmothers or story of mothers, when they get translated into films, how much impact. And he has been, I still remember the 3 day seminars which happened, and a lot of film personalities. So he is not only a theoretician, rather he is a practitioner himself who has been involved in the production of the film. He has the project, he has also interaction of the film personalities. So there is a bouquet of the whole knowledge system in which he presents. So with these few words, I think we are going to be a fantastic treat for the understanding of Indian cinema culture and Indology and Indian culture. I think with these words I welcome you, sir. What to welcome in your own center, but definitely it's a formality. मैं आपका स्वागत करता हूँ कि आप हमको लाभान्वित करें अपने ज्ञान के भंडार से। यद्यपि आपका ज्ञान का भंडार तो भारत या पूरे ब्रह्मांड में जैसे कुछ पत्ते हैं लगे हुए, तो कुछ पत्तों को कहीं से हम तोड़ लें तो फिर भी ज्ञान पूरा नहीं हो पाएगा। इन शब्दों के साथ आपका मैं स्वागत करता हूँ।
Thank you, Professor Vivek Kumar. You have always been my younger brother, and whatever you have said has no substance. This is just a respect to an elder brother. Don't take him seriously. I am a very local sociologist, whereas most others in JNU are international social scientists or whatever. And I'm happy to be local. Besides Akhand Bharat, I have not visited any foreign country. And I have also not visited Pakistan, but I have visited Tibet, nowadays part of China, Bhutan, uh, Nepal. That's it. But I have been very intense field worker, and today I was very reluctant to speak. There are two reasons. Number one, I wanted to speak a little later when all my colleagues are able to read the book. Unfortunately, I got only one copy from the publisher, and that copy was taken by the Vice Chancellor of our university. Then some other teachers have got from their own
Resources.
enterprise. I have given one copy to the center's library, and I have always been taking feedback of Professor Vivek Kumar. Therefore, I have brought this book for him. Although he will be going a little early,
No, I'll
he
come
will
back.
receive the book through the chairperson.
I will come. Don't worry, sir.
Some of you may have read some of the portions. What I wanted to share was a suggestion by Professor Vivek Kumar that in case you do not want to speak on the book, at least you may share your journey towards this book. And this was not a very easy task. And I'm not going to speak much about the two books. Whatever I have written, it is a public property now. The book is yours only until it is published. The moment it is published, you do not matter. Even if you are not a post-structuralist like Roland Barthes,
But
the author is dead once the book is published. Then it is just the text of the book and the readers. And it is a very intimate relationship between a book and a reader. Sometimes the authors are surprised by the comment they receive from the readers, because the readers read something which sometimes is not intended by the author. And as a sociologist, I will say they are not wrong, even if it was not intentionally written by the author. Because I agree with Reinhard Benedict's. This line I had written in early 1980s, to be precise in 1982. He said, ideas come when they please, they do not come when we please. Therefore, it is quite possible, in most cases, at least it is very much important for me, that my readers of my books have enlightened me more than I have been able to enlighten them. And this is an understatement and not the overstatement. For example, on 29th, my dear friend Upender retired from our center, and many were alarmed when I said that once I proposed the name of Bhupender with Dipankar Gupta to be made Emeritus Professor of Sociology. But I think some of you, I think Professor Vivek Kumar, Nilika, and Surender Jodhka, they are present that I had said it in the very official faculty meeting, and it was minuted, although with a pinch of salt. And those who have read my Hindi books, they know that I have always said that I wish I have the craft and art of our grandmothers, mostly illiterate, but educated and wise. Our laborers, our farmers, our craftsmen and women, they may be illiterate, but they are not only educated but very, very wise. And the role of a good sociologist or anthropologist should be to learn the wisdom with whatever information they are interested in gathering, to fit in the Western theories under which they do their fieldwork. I hope I have made my point.
Yeah.
Four issues I wanted to highlight in my sociological journey since 1978. Now, in 1977 general election, Congress party was defeated and a new government headed by Morarji Desai took over. And although it would not last longer, but when I joined sociology as a very, very young mind, I was not a friend of René Descartes. Plainly speaking, some of you may dislike it, but in 1978 January, the date was 11th, when I was reading his book, I thought that even if we try to search very, very honestly, we will not find a greater fool like René Descartes. And over the years, I am confirmed that much of non-Westerners have nothing to learn from entire Western philosophy. At best, it is wastage of time. These are very, very harsh words, but this is what I felt in 1978, and I tried my best, but I have not been able to revise my convictions. The reason is this, that even in Europe, in Greek, in Latin, body was always contrasted with soul, never with mind. And René Descartes is contrasting mind with body. Now, the first question which created very profound anguish in my spiritual psyche was the simple childlike question: where is the where is the mind located in the human body or in society? Can we differentiate mind from the brain, which is part of the body? Is mind something beyond the body? I was born in 1962. Therefore, I was not very older in 1978. I was very young mind. I could not observe mind to follow, or rather to borrow from Imail Durkheim, as something external, constraining and general. Therefore, I was in great dilemma or dilemma, as some of you call it, whether to pursue sociology or not to pursue it. The reason was that until 1977, I was not formally schooled. As most of you must have gone through the formal school, I had studied in Gurukuls, both Hindu and Buddhist. And basically, since childhood, when most of you were doing your primary school, middle school, or high school, most madarsas in India, in madarsas, they give you religious education. I'm not very sure about the Christian seminaries, because the convent schools are also Christian in nature. Therefore, in Christian convent school, you get parallel education of some sort, at least in India. But in madrasas, you have a parallel education, which is not at par with the general education which their, counterparts in convent schools or government schools. Then there were not many private schools in 1970s. Therefore, I was a student of Gurukuls, primarily run by the Buddhist and the so-called Vedic scholars. In the beginning, I was a student of Vedic Gurukuls, but then when I was 4 years old, I was given to a Vedic Gurukul run by a person called Swami Karpatriji Maharaj. 62, I was born. 63, I was 1 year old. 64, 2 years old. 65, 3 years old. 66, 4 years old. I joined the Gurukul of Swami Karpatriji Maharaj in 1966. He was a very strict teacher, but by 75, my young mind and body, not in the Cartesian sense of mind, but in the Indic sense or the Asiatic sense of mind, which is part of the body, it revolted against the very strict discipline of the Vedic Gurukuls. For good or bad, I told my grandfather, it is not my cup of tea. He said, then what do you want to do? I I said I wanted to study in Buddhist Gurukul, either at Bodh Gaya or at Sikkim. He was very disturbed. And yesterday I was taking a class to teach these students. I think yesterday or day before yesterday. Then there was a context in which we were discussing different incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Then there was no disagreement until Lord Krishna. The student who was from Madhya Pradesh, I think he is the person. He shared with us that there are many avatars of Lord Vishnu, but he stopped at Lord Krishna. I had a very curious bafflement on my face. I asked him, what about the Buddha? Because even Karpatri Ji Maharaj, who was a staunch anti-Buddhist, even the staunch Buddhist like Karpatri Ji Maharaj agreed that Buddha was an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. But this gentleman, our fellow sociologist, said that in our area, it is widely believed that Bhagavan Buddha is not the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Now I asked him, from when this tendency started in India? The fact is that before 1956, when Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had not converted to Buddhism, I had not read any publication which claimed that Lord Buddha does not belong to the list of incarnations described in Vishnu Puran or Padma Puran or Vayu Puran. Then what is it? It is Indology and Orientalism. He is not guilty. Generations of sociologists are guilty who are teaching Max Weber's sociology, particularly religion of India and religion of China. And this is my main theme. I think most of you, those who are sociology students, you must have read Religion of India and Religion of China. And when Max Weber died, he died in 1920. Therefore, all his books available in English language are good or bad translations of the German originals he wrote before 1920, before his death. Unless and until somebody claims that he had become the Holy Ghost and he is writing after his death in another body, unless and until that claim is made, we will have to rely on the German originals. And unfortunately or fortunately, I know some of the European languages, including the German. Now, most people asked me, where you learned all these languages? I learned these languages in Buddhist monasteries. Both Gaya Mutt, which is primarily a Buddhist mutt, but the government of India under the leadership of so-called secular Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru decided that although this is a Buddhist mutt, but the management committee of the Buddhist Bodh Gaya mutt will be run by both the Hindus and the Buddhists. Now, today, the richest library of Indic literature, the library of both Gaya Mutt, has been closed. You cannot go and consult that library anymore. Therefore, I was lucky enough that I converted to Buddhism in 1975, and I was able to use three of the best libraries available in India today. One is unusable today because of government interference, namely the library of Bodh Gaya Mutt, Khudabaks Khan Oriental Library, and Sinha Library, Patna. These three libraries are richer than the National Library at Kolkata. I have consulted that library as well. Now, I have nothing substantial to add today besides I have written in these two books, Indology, Sociology and Culture in India, and Sociology of Cinema and Culture in India. Both books are available in our library. But I have a bad habit, which I am not ashamed of. I never repeat my two lectures. Or, even if I am speaking on the same theme, I will never reproduce what I have written or what I have spoken. Therefore, what do? I read my own books. I read my own books not as author but as a reader. Because once it is published, it is no more my book. It is a book available in the public domain. This is second edition. I do not have a copy of the first edition. Hold out. When I was trying to read these two books to present what I have to present today, I have made several notes. And these notes are written. But in case I have to read, it will take longer time. And some of us are in a hurry. Professor Vivek Kumar, who pressurized me to give this talk, is not here in body, but maybe he is present here in soul form. I do not know. In the same way, our very erudite scholar, Rathesh, told me that he will be leaving at 12:30. Therefore, just to share something to the host of Professor Vivek Kumar. and to the body of Professor Rathi's, I have the following to say. I will speak about my journey once he leaves at 12:30 because he had some urgent work. Actually, when I was reading this book, my honest impression was this, that this book should not have been published. This is very outdated book. This was my honest reaction as a reader. Therefore, my ruthlessness as a reader is not different when I am reading my own book or I am reading René Descartes or Max Weber. I am a very ruthless reader. And I am inspired by one of the books written by Claude Lévi-Strauss, which I have not prescribed to my students, but I have shared with them. And what is the name of the book? Sarvari?
Look, listen.
Again, a little louder.
Look, listen and read.
Look,
Listen and read.
listen, and read. This is a book written by Claude Lévi-Strauss. And I will just concentrate on these three words in the context of three disciplines: Indology, Sociology, and Anthropology. Now, what is the difference between Sociology, Anthropology, and Indology? There are many, and then there are none. Let us take the first issue. Indologists have tried to do all the three things. They have tried to look, they have tried to listen, and they have tried to read. When they are looking at any civilization, they are looking at the material culture. When they are trying to listen, they are trying to listen the spirit of the culture. And when they are trying to read, they are trying to read the culture as a book. As a result, Indologists, whether they are good Indologists or bad Indologists, they are very different from what sociologists and anthropologists do. But there are also very important similarities. For example, take the term modern. What is modern? For majority of sociologists, it is a very simple affair, unless and until you are a great admirer of a book. I will just mention the book, not the author. We Were Never Modern. We Were Never Modern is a famous book these days. This question of modernity has been very, very significant concept, preliminary concept for Indologists. For example, in this book, I have primarily discussed the Indology of Sir William Jones, who founded the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784. And I have taken the official date that Indology as a discipline was started in 1784 by Sir William Jones at Calcutta. But was William Jones' book, which was published as Seminal Writings and Speeches in the year 1784. This was the inaugural book of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. Was the official date 1784? Was also the date of Indology in other countries? The answer is no. There used to be something like Indology in ancient Greece. And the Indology means the science of India or the systematic study of India. The systematic study of India was much more developed, profound disciplines in ancient Greece, ancient China, ancient Rome, ancient Persia. And they started writing much before Jesus was born. But much of this is not read these days. These days means at least since the time of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Raja Ram Mohan Roy is regarded as the first modern Indian. But there is a book, The Shape of Ancient Thought. I do not know how many of you have read this book. For you, I am giving you the reference. The Shape of Ancient Thought, Comparative Studies in Greek and Indian Philosophy by Thomas or Thomas. There are two ways to pronounce it. Thomas McVilley. McEvilley. McEvilley. Delhi, Motilal Banarsi Das, 2002. This is one of the most profound books in Indology. Many people refer to many authors, Indian and Western. I also refer to many books written by different authors. But when I was critically reading my own book as a reader, I thought I have not developed this idea. Then, when I was reading this book, The Shape of Ancient Thought, Comparative Studies in Greek and Indian Philosophies, there was a very striking line. The Buddha in Indian history is the dividing line. You cannot read Indian history, Indian culture, Indian society in a narrative continuity. There is a radical rupture in pre-Buddhist and after Buddhist. Now, if you read his after Buddhist discussion, then you may be alarmed or ashamed. I was both alarmed and ashamed. That he is claiming that with Buddhism in India, there was a radical shift in thinking, feeling, and having. This radical shift in India was more radical than the shift in Europe after the so-called modernity. In case you compare or contrast the pre-Buddhist India with the post-Buddhist India, the difference between pre-Buddhist Europe and, the pre-modern Europe and post-modern Europe will look very, very faded, very, very blurred. Are you getting my point? The type of radical shift which took place in much of Asia, because Islamic scholars are, very, very clear that Islam did not convert Christians or Jews. They converted the pagans, primarily the Buddhists in the Middle East. And secondly, most people think that Christianity is European. But much of Judaism, much of Christianity, and much of Islam was something directly related with Indic civilization. For example, the Syrian Christians of Kerala came to India in 72 AD. The Muslim merchants of Arabia came to Calicut in 6th century AD. And the first Christian in Europe is documented only in 4th century AD. Therefore, who has a better claim over Christianity, India or Europe? 72 AD is older or 4th century AD is older? Anyway, but so far as Indology is concerned, much of Indology taught in India was developed by East India Company. I have also mentioned about Max Muller. There is no doubt about Sir William Jones and his orthodox disciples, that they are not considered Orientalists, they are called Indologists, whereas the case of Max Muller is a little controversial. For example, when he was made the editor of the sacred books of the East, he was not the most profound scholar of Sanskrit in Europe or even in Germany. My Indological readings say that East India Company announced this project, that they wanted the sacred books of the East to be edited by a profound scholars, and they wanted to give contract, as the contract for bridges and roads are given to contractors. And they decided, the directors of the East India Company decided that they will select the lowest bidder. Are you getting the point? not the profoundest scholar, but the lowest bidder, who will do the work in very little money. There were 20 professors of Sanskrit who had applied for this contract. But they did not select any one of them. They selected a student of Sanskrit who had not done any research, because he was the lowest bidder. And he was appointed the series editor of Sacred Books of the East. I have read all the 40 volumes edited under him in 1980s, before I came to Delhi School of Economics and JNU. And then I thought that Max Muller is a Orientalist. He is not an Indologist, like much of the people associated with the Asiatic Society of Bengal. But now my views have changed. I think the intention must be taken into account. In judiciary, the same act done intentionally is termed as crime, but the same accident or the same event or the same act done unintentionally is called a mistake. Today I would like to say that Max Muller was not an Orientalist, the way Max Weber is an Orientalist. His mistakes of translation are a product. His mistakes of translation are a product of incompetence. These are not intentionally done. There is no politics of translation involved in his edited books. In contrast, I regard both Karl Marx and Max Weber, but Karl Marx less, Max Weber more, as the ideal typical Orientalist Edward Said is criticizing in the book Orientalism. I am giving you example. There is a so-called book which is taught in Indian and American universities, which Max Weber scholars claim Max Weber never wrote for publication. I can give you some 200 references in case you are interested. Max Weber never wrote for publication two very popular books in United States of America and India: Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism and Methodology of Social Sciences. But at the moment I will concentrate only on Max Weber's published book as it is received by us, and it is still being taught in the universities. And the book says Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. The book says that Protestant ethic of John Calvin is the signifier, and capitalism is the signified. And Benjamin Franklin is the interpretant. These three terms are from semiotics. In semiotics, there are three key terms: signifier, signified, and interpretant. Whereas in semiology, there are only two key terms: signifier and signified. Now, these two terms became very, very popular, semiology and semiotics, in modern universities after Claude Lévi-Strauss. Now, as we all know, semiology is a developed form of a structuralism, French structuralism, which Lévi-Strauss developed by synthesizing the structural linguistics of Ferdinand de Saussure or Saussure and Emile Durkheim. And the revolt against structuralism by the former admirers of structuralism, known as post-structuralism, lies in this break. Post-structuralists like Roland Barthes, Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, and Lacan, Althusser, Maurice Godelier, they were earlier very staunch admirers of structuralism of Claude Lévi-Strauss. But by 1968, there was a revolt. This is widely known as three things. It is known as postmodernism, post-structuralism, and late capitalism. Therefore, we cannot say that Max Weber should be accused of this mumbo jumbo between semiotics and semiology. But today, as readers, we have every right to compare and contrast his different books by using these methods. Now let us come to Religion of India first. I do not know how many of you have read this book, but he says that in India there are only two religions, Hinduism and Jainism. There is no mention of Buddhism. Secondly, he is trying to oversimplify different sects and denominations of so-called Hindu religions. But in Indological literature, religion of India is a much more sophisticated venture. Not in 1920s, but in 1790s. Are you getting my point? And unfortunately, the most developed Indology in the modern world is available in German language. Although I have not elaborated these things in my book, in this book, but I have promised in the preface of the second edition, that in the forthcoming book which I am writing, which will appear, I think, in December 2025, I am trying to compare and contrast the Bengal School of Indology and Madras School of Orientalism. But at the moment, try to look at Max Weber. Max Weber is claiming that he cannot understand Protestant ethic of John Calvin on his own. Therefore, he will have to rely on the interpretation provided by Benjamin Franklin. Are you getting the point? Now, who is Max Weber? Max Weber is the elder brother of sociologist Alfred Weber and the eldest son of the Lutheran priest and the eldest son of the Calvinist mother. And the father and mother are separated. The father is living in Germany, the mother is living in London, and Max Weber is living with the Calvinist mother. He is claiming that I cannot understand my mother's practices. I cannot understand my mother's beliefs. For this, I need the interpretation of Benjamin Franklin, who was living during the French Revolution in United States. But when he is writing on India or on China or on Islam or on ancient Judaism or on the Catholic religion, he does not require any interpreter of the theologies these countries provide. If it is not Orientalism, what it is? A man is claiming that I do not understand the religious rituals of my mother and religious belief of my mother, although for 60 years or more I have been living with her. But without visiting India or China, even for a second, without knowing Sanskrit, Pali or Prakrit or Mandarin or Arabic or Hebrew, I have every right to interpret the sacred text of these religions. If this is not Orientalism, what is? When nearer your home, very sophisticated Indological text on India, China, Islam, Catholic Christianity and Judaism is available, you have no time to consult the library nearer your home. What is this? My young mind revolted in 1978. And then when I joined Delhi School of Economics in 1984, because I was expelled from JNU in 1983, I had taken admission at this center in 1982. But Indira Gandhi visited this campus. We revolted against her. There was a lathi charge. We were beaten very, very ruthlessly. And two of us, others got milder punishment. Two of us, one was expelled for 1 semester, I was expelled for 2 years. And then I had no other option but take admission in Delhi School of Economics. Now, today when I am old enough, I have no anger towards Indira Gandhi or the Lathi Charge or towards the VC of JNU who expelled me for 2 years. I have no anger to my friends and teachers and students who still teach Max Weber in sociology. But this is bad karma. And all of us will repent. Why I am telling this? Because when I had joined this center in 1982, there were 4 thinkers who were taught. Karl Marx and Emile Durkheim was taught by Yogen Singh, and Wilfred Pareto and Max Weber were taught by T.K. Umen. But at Delhi School of Economics, they were teaching only 3 thinkers from the very beginning: Marx, Weber, and Durkheim. But before coming to JNU in 1982, I was very irregular student, and therefore I have no complaints when my students debunk my classes. I was very irregular student of Patna University. It was a college, PN College, Patna, where I studied from 1978 to 1982. From May 78 to May 82. We were taught 16 thinkers. And I must say that we were not reading books written by these 16 thinkers. We were reading a textbook, which was a textbook in sociology departments in English-speaking countries from 1920s. I do not remember exact date, 1917 or it was 1919, but definitely before Max Weber was dead. This book was the standard textbook, most reliable textbook in English-speaking countries. The book's name was History of Sociological Thought, edited by Barnes. After the Second World War was over, and Germany, Italy, Japan were decisively defeated. The academia in the world was undergoing turmoil. In 1937, Talcott Parsons, the man responsible for the publication of Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism and Methodology of Social Sciences, published his 2 volumes, namely The Structure of Social Action. And there are many, social scientist he is referring to. But one name is missing in the book. Has anybody read the book? The name of Talcott Parsons is not included either in the main text or in the footnote. Although I say openly that I'm a Buddhist sociologist and Vedic cosmologist, I am not a Marxist, but JNU is a Marxist university. And I regard Capital Volume 1 as a classic, which is as important as any of the classics in any discipline. This is a great book, without doubt, in my humble understanding. But I refuse to accept as a reader that Capital Volume 2 and 3 are written by Karl Marx. Because I have been a very honest student of Capital Volume 1 and Dialectics of Nature by Friedrich Engels. The type of writing, Dialectics of Nature, of Friedrich Engels is qualitatively different from the writings of Karl Marx. I do believe that Friedrich Engels has done the same thing to the writings of Karl Marx after his death, which Talcott Parsons and Mrs. Weber did with the writings of Max Weber after his death. We must remember that neither Karl Marx nor Max Weber taught sociology or any of the social sciences anywhere. Max Weber wanted to become a junior lecturer of philosophy in Germany, but he was excluded. From the list of selected candidates everywhere he applied. As a result, he revolted against the whole system, which was not able to give him, the post of a junior lecturer. But the case of Max Weber is very interesting. The man was a very erudite student of law and jurisprudence. And unlike his younger brother Alfred, who was a career academician, who was always teaching, Max Weber decided to be a politician. He fought many elections. He was defeated in many but won some elections. And when First World War was over, he was the chief negotiator from the German side. Are you getting the point? He was the chief negotiator from the German side. And until he was alive, he was not even a minor figure in German academia. He was derided, he was criticized as a politician who is trying to enter academia. The line between political activism and pure academic excursus was very, very dominant until Max Weber was alive. Therefore, when his bad health forced him to retire from politics, he decided to pursue, the Purusartha of knowledge. And I regard three of his works very, very serious works of scholarship. but they were not the product of academic procedure of writing a book. It was to a large extent armchair philosophy with very, very important insights. But I regard his three of the writings, namely Politics as a Vocation, very, very seriously. His Science as a Vocation was also a very serious piece of work. And then his half complete work, Economy and Society, translated by Roth and many others since 1980s. The earlier translations were under the influence of Talcott Parsons and his school. Now, I will come to Talcott Parsons and then come to Indology again to make things a little more simpler. I said that Max Weber was the chief negotiator from the German side during the First World War. In the same way, after the Second World War, two young people were picked from American universities by Roosevelt and his successor Eisenhower. One was Talcott Parsons and the second was Rostow. Therefore, these three people, Max Weber and his importance today in the universities, is a product of political crisis. Although Max Weber was not a career academician during his life, but after the Second World War, his admirer and translator and co-conspirator with Mrs. Weber, eulogized Max Weber at the cost of many others. And who are the many others who are terribly important for the science of sociology and anthropology? One was definitely August Comte. Second was Herbert Spencer. Third was Jombart, who wrote Jews and Capitalism. Fourth was Ferdinand Tönnies, who wrote Community and Society. Fifth was Gmail or Simel, who wrote Philosophy of Money. Fifth was Wilfred Pareto. Sixth was Pitrim Alexander Sorokin, who had recruited Talcott Parsons as a research associate in Harvard University. The others in the committee were against Talcott Parsons. They thought that this man requires more study to be appointed in Harvard University. The first thing which Talcott Parsons did after he became advisor of Roosevelt and Eisenhower was to expel Pitrim Alexander Sorokin from Harvard University. Therefore, what I am trying to say is that unless and until you understand Indology as a separate science, not as a method of anthropology and sociology, you will not be able to understand much of the academic debates on India. Number one, Indologists, whenever they try to understand India. They do not understand only the culture and society in India, but they also studied science and technology and medicine of India. Therefore, in William Jones and his disciples in Calcutta, Asiatic Society of Bengal, Calcutta, and his admirers in Calcutta University, like B.K. Sarkar and B.N. Seal, you find a different type of India. For example, B.K. Sarkar wrote Positive Background of Hindu Sociology in 3 volumes. Unfortunately, today the full book is not available anywhere except in Calcutta National Library, Fudabakh Khan Library, and the library of Bodh Gaya Math. Today, abridged version, there is a Gita Press Gorakhpur in India. They have abridged every text of India. Are you getting the point? The fact 20,000 book of B.K. Sarkar has been reduced to 200 or 300 pages. It was a book at par with Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte claims, whether you agree with him or not, that among the sciences, mathematics is the simplest science on earth, and sociology is the most complex science of earth. For Max Weber, sociology is not a science. But for Durkheim, sociology is a science. But it is not as hard a science. For Durkheim, it is not as hard a science as it was for Auguste Comte. Are you getting the point? Therefore, unless and until you have this background, that sociology in Europe emerged in the beginning in France as a hard science, the most developed science, in continuation with the simplest mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, geology, and then sociology. Are you getting the point? The first sociologist, Auguste Comte, tried to develop sociology at par with Indology. The most systematic study in Europe about any civilization was about India. India was the other for Europe, as Europe is the other for us. And what was the salient feature of Indological writings on India? For Indologists, not only in 18th century, but even today, I have, for example, given one name, I will also name 2, 3 other books. For modernized Europe, India represents tradition in totality. European scholars in Indological tradition have been claiming that in case you want to understand European tradition in any meaningful sense, you have nothing in Europe which help you. Are you getting the point? Indology for us may be a science of India, but Indology for much of European scholars is the only available source to understand European tradition. Are you getting the point? What happened in Europe after Europe became Christian?
Sorry.
There were 400 Bibles. There were 400 Bibles. In the great Roman Empire. And Rome then was a pagan empire. But the pagan empires anywhere in the world, including in China and India, have been very, very tolerant of the other faiths. The type of tolerance pagans had showed towards the Semitic religions is missing either in the Semitic religions or in Marxism or in liberalism. These are very, very intolerant faiths. Therefore, when the Christian representative in the Roman Empire, Saint Peter, and his disciple Saint Paul, they were able to convert the emperor of Rome. The next day, a state ordinance was passed that all Bibles available in the Roman Empire should be deposited to the emperor's office. And only 36 hours were given. And those who will be having a copy of the Bible after 36 hours of the ordinance, they will be regarded as rebels and criminals. And then Saint Peter and his disciple Saint Paul decided that a particular Bible out of the 400 will be the official Bible. But even today, there are more than 400 versions of the Bible. How? There has been a tradition of secret teachers of the West. And in case you wanted to know about the secret teachers of the West who preserved the diversity in European tradition, you are very lucky today. Because when I was a student, younger student, I am still a student but at the verge of retirement, we had to read a lot of books. Today in one volume, not fatter than this, you can read, a glimpse of the diversity European tradition had and which was preserved secretly by the secret masters of the West, not the East. As I said, I have already shared you the reference of the shape of ancient thought, comparative studies in Greek and Indian philosophies. by Thomas McEvilley. Now I am sharing with you a book. The first book, The Shape of Ancient Thought, was published in English language in 2002. But The Secret Teachers of the Western World by Gary Lackman was published in 2015. The name of the publisher is not well known. Jeremy T. Tarcher. This is the publisher. This is the cousin, first cousin or third cousin, I do not know, of the Penguin books. But the Penguin books is a cousin. The real publisher is Jeremy, Jeremy Tarcher, Tarcher. Jeremy P. Tarcher has, done a very, very magnificent work, The Secret Teachers of the Western World by Gary M. Lachman. Then there is a book, The Easternization of the West. The Easternization of the West. The first title is very, very interesting, but this book was published in 2007 when I had held the first 3 days conference on cinema and society in India. This was a gift which I received by one of the speakers, namely Sam Benegal.
Is it available on Amazon now?
I do not know. Sam Benegal, who was the chief guest, he said that since you have screened my film Ankur, I must give you a book which will interest you. He said the Easternization of the West. I was delighted in the beginning, but when I read the subtitle, I said, okay. Easternization of the West, subtitle is A Thematic Account of the Cultural Change in the Modern Era.
Modern era of West.
But there is another book, unfortunately not available in English language. It was the gift of my Diksha Guru in Buddhism, Bhante Nyan Jagat Maharaj. There have been two Buddhist monks by the same name, Bhante Nyan Jagat Maharaj, who was my Diksha Guru in 1975, was a Chinese Buddhist monk who was 90 years old in 1975. Then we have another Bhante Nyan Jagat Maharaj. He came from Sri Lanka. And he was, Guru Bhai of Anagarik Dhamapal or Dharampal. Anagarik Dharampal, who was a very important influence on Baba Sahab Ambedkar. But the book was given by my Diksha Guru, the Chinese Bhante Nyan Jagat Maharaj. The book was originally written in Mandarin. The book was written in Mandarin language. The title was the same. The title of the same in the Mandarin language was The Easternization of the West, an account of traditional Europe. Therefore, in case you read both the books, the Mandarin book and the English book, you will be, in a position to understand the tradition-modernity debate in sociology and anthropology properly. Now, one anecdote. The anecdote is this.
So conclusion.
कंक्लूजन से एक लाइन पहले, ये जो है ना,
सबके साथ सेमिनार नहीं सत्संग होना चाहिए, और सत्संग जो है वो एक दिन 1 घंटे या 2 घंटे का नहीं।
चलिए कोई बात नहीं, तो मैं अपनी बात खत्म कर लूं। तो अब थोड़ा सा इंडियन सोशियोलॉजी पर यदि नहीं बोलेंगे तो बात बनेगी नहीं। ये जो कंपैरिजन है ना ईस्टर्नाइजेशन ऑफ द वेस्ट का, ये इंडिया में नहीं पढ़ाया जाता है। और इंडिया में अब पता नहीं आप में से कितने लोगों को हिंदी आती है, लेकिन अब चूंकि जो चेयर कम मॉडरेटर का आदेश है कि खत्म करना है, तो मैं इनकी बात यदि नहीं मानूंगा तो वो तो बहुत गलत हो जाएगा।
क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन भी है ना, थोड़ा
क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि आज ही हो।
अच्छा
ना मैं मरने जा रहा हूँ बहुत जल्दी, ना आप लोग मरने जा रहे हैं, लेकिन मुझे अपनी बात खत्म करने दीजिए। एक आदमी है A.L. क्रोबर, वो अमेरिका के कल्चरल एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट है। मैं हिंदी में जानबूझ के बोल रहा हूँ क्योंकि कंक्लूजन की बात इन्होंने की, तो वो मैं हिंदी में बोलूंगा। जिसको नहीं समझ में आएगा वो अपने साथियों से पूछ लीजिएगा। तो वो क्या है, जब सारी दुनिया इवोल्यूशन की बात कर रही थी तो वो डिफ्यूजन की बात करते थे। A.L. क्रोबर एंड W.H.R. रिवर्स, A.L. Krober was American cultural anthropologist and W.H.R. Rivers was a British social anthropologist. Both jointly developed a theory in contrast to theory of evolution. It is known as the theory of diffusion. And interestingly, both of them are trying to say that there is easternization of the West and westernization of the East. There has been diffusion of ideas from East to West and West to East. Therefore, neat classification, which we find in pattern variables of Talcott-Parsons or Tonich or Durkheim or Max Weber, is at best ignorance. Because ideas, flow in all the 10 corners. There are 8 corners on earth, and Akash and Patal, 10 corners. And therefore, to talk about originality of East and originality of the West is not a true statement. Secondly, there is a difference between logic and truth. Logic and truth. And this is my gift on Teachers Day to Professor Vivek Kumar. Actually, there was a very stupid man who is very influential figure in social sciences, but I was never influenced by either René Descartes or the man I am talking about, Immanuel Kant. What was happening in Europe before Immanuel Kant? Before Immanuel Kant, people were trying to understand noumena or reality as it is. Reality as it is was called noumena, and it was studied primarily by ontologists, theorists of reality. Ontology is theory of reality. Noumena was studied the world over before Immanuel Kant by ontologists. And in philosophy as well as in early social sciences until 18th century, ontology was primary and epistemology or theory of knowledge was secondary. Immanuel Kant gave the radical rupture, which is called the Kantian revolution in social sciences, at par with the Copernican revolution in natural sciences. He said that we cannot study noumena or reality as it is. Therefore, we can only study reality as it appears through our concepts, theories, methods, and techniques. Therefore, all knowledge which will be or which should be produced in laboratories and academia should be phenomenal knowledge. This was the negation of tradition in Europe. This was the negation of ontology, and it made logic more important than truth. This radical rupture had done more harm to the entire world because it fragmented knowledge. Knowledge can be unified only in truth. Once you are making epistemology primary and relegating ontology, the search for truth, as secondary, the entire rule of game had changed. Therefore, when I said, and this is my concluding line, that in this center there should be post of 2 emeritus professor, one for Dipankar Gupta and one for Bhupender, whom many people consider as a peon who has retired. I consider him as the great, source of folk wisdom. It is only in Indology that folk wisdom and classical knowledge was synthesized. It was only in Indology that physical sciences, natural sciences, fine arts and social sciences was synthesized. Fortunately or unfortunately, anthropology is trying to carry the legacy of Indologists. But sociologists have, devised, after the Second World War, a narrow lane where knowledge comes from the elite and the downtrodden common people are just the consumers of that knowledge. Here I stop. I have not said any word about cinema because I had given a seminar in 2020 on cinema and culture in India, and I have a book on Bharat mein cinema aur Sanskriti, which sounds similar, but it is qualitatively much different than the 2020 publication. Thank you.
Another lecture. So, question answer. Reflection problem.
So friends, I think, first of all, I'm culprit because I was not able to hear. And I had excused sir from very politely, and he was very polite enough to allow me also to leave in between. But by now you must be aware of the depth of understanding and knowledge about the theme which we have kept here. And today I think it was a very befitting gift for all the students on the Teachers' Day, because I know with sir, if you have to sit, it's very difficult to just pinpoint a little bit of it, because when he starts, it's very difficult to ascertain actually that how long you can listen. and he has that depth, and it's a glimpse only, as I told you. So if you have very hard-pressing reflection, question, or if you want to give your views, I think you are welcome. The house is open.
Actually, I joined very late. But yeah, I agree with Professor Vivek Kumar that one is always amazed at the expanse of his reading and knowledge uh, about, especially the ideological traditions, and I'm actually going to request him to give one special lecture for ISS RC 1 one of the days. अभी मैं आपसे request कर रही हूँ. You should give. Yeah, so no, हम invite कर रहे हैं. No, but I'm really intrigued when you spoke about how Indology combines the physical and the social and philosophical, traditions, and how in sociology we tended to actually focus more on the social aspects and less on the other, especially the physical, biological, philosophical aspects. But do you think sociology today, because I see a lot of engagement with philosophy within sociological, schools, and anthropology, of course, if you look at the work of Veena Das, she's more and more engaging with philosophy. So you think this is going to be fruitful, especially with regard to research and teaching? The second thing is also, I was just thinking about JPS Oberoi's work when he was trying to study the Western mind, Europe. So, do you think you also put him in the tradition of looking at how from the colonized world we look at the colonizer? Because you did not use colonialism anywhere in what I heard in last 1 hour. So, what do you have to say about the power dynamics between the colonial knowledge and the colonizers' resistance and the response to it? Is it a response? Is it an engagement? Is it just a diffusion? What do you have to say on that?
Both are.
If you have somebody the same question related to something, so that we can jump. Otherwise,
Since we're in cinema.
I think you can.
So can I?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you've already delivered a lecture on cinema in 2020, so you were not present there. So out of curiosity, in case of cinema, how you look at cinema, how you listen cinema, and how you read cinema to arrive at sociology of cinema in India. Just to combine both the aspects.
So I think, sir, my hunch is always that you have a very different take on rasas in Indian culture. And how do you bring that rasas in the cinema? The 10 rasas actually. I think it will be very fruitful for us, all of you, that if you can combine Indology and Indian culture a little bit, because you are already actually given civilizational perspective. And I'm also, provoked to ask Westrology. I'm not asking that. So we will leave for that. But I think if you can bring in little bit, I think students will be.
Okay. How much time I have? Then
It's up to you. Time actually is no
okay.
part for 15 minutes.
First, let me try to respond, not answer. Respond to Nilika ji's observations. First, the question of Veena Das and the relationship between philosophy and sociology in India. And second, J.P. Subirai, his understanding of modern West. Both have been my teachers, and to say in one sentence, I regard J.P. Subirai as one of the three or four teachers who influenced me to think about the West in the way I think. Although I was his very obedient and faithful disciple until 2007 or 8, but then when my publications started to attract his criticism, he was more uncomfortable than I was. The problem with J.P. Subirai was that he was born in Lahore but brought up in London. Although after 1984 Operation Blue Star, as a protest, he started to dress up as a
Sikh.
faithful Sikh. Before 84, there was no beard, no kala, no kangha, no turban. But what he lacked, and he was ashamed of that, because I knew him very, very intimately, that he did not know his mother tongue. He did not know Punjabi, he did not know the script Gurumukhi. I am a multilingual person and I know a couple of languages. In the first edition of the book, it was mentioned about the languages, the number of the languages I know, but then I decided to change that. He knew only English and engineering. For many people, engineering is a subject of study. For me, engineering is a language which is rooted in Newtonian mechanics. He knew only two languages, English and mechanics of Newton. And although he was an academic critic of Isaac Newton, but he did not know Latin. I know Latin. He read English translation of Principia Mathematica. I have read all the 40 books he wrote in Latin. And 39 books of Isaac Newton are about Christian theology. And 40th book is also Christian mathematics, which is in English translated as Principia Mathematica, is a book on Christian mathematics. The way in India we have Vedic mathematics written by Jagat Guru Shankaracharya Bharati Krishna Tirth. Therefore, Isaac Newton was not a secular mind, he was a Christian mind. The problem with J.P. Subirai was that he did not read Newton. He criticized him, mostly rightly, but sometimes also not so rightly. He is claiming I have read all his books because I consider me as a club of J.P.A. Subirai. His Arjuna was Dipankar Gupta, who deserted him long back. But I never deserted J.P.A. Subirai. He is one of the four pillars of my persona, my sociological persona. The first is definitely without any doubt B.R. Ambedkar, whom I consider as my Bhagwan, an incarnation, whether you like it or not. And I do not think that he was a propounder of Nabyayan. I think he was the integrator of Buddhism. In case you want to understand Buddhism, you can not rely on anyone else. It is only Ambedkar who gives you the essence of all the three yans. Asthabirvad, which is wrongly translated as Hinayan, Mahayan and Kalchakrayan. And I have read at least 4,000 times the Buddha and his Dhamma written by B.R. Ambedkar. That is mostly under my pillow. Therefore, I do not know about others, but I am a hardcore Ambedkarite. So far as sociology is concerned, I introduce myself as a Buddhist sociologist. The second influence on me is that of A.K. Saran, who was one of the champions of Lucknow Department of Sociology and Anthropology. The third influence on me was Anand Kentish Kumaraswamy, and the fourth is J.P.A. Subirai. Therefore, I am definitely influenced by J.P.A. Subirai. But for me, J.P.A. Subirai was a very profound scholar of one aspect of European mind, and that, he had published four important works. One book which is not read, I will, say the first, and that was Politics of the Pularing. That is the first book which he wrote, and that is a very sophisticated critique of Bronisław Malinowski's book of Argonauts of Western Pacific. Politics of nobody has written a better critique of Malinowski than J.P.A. Subirai. Unfortunately, that is not a very popular book. The second book which he wrote, it was published in the same year I joined sociology, and I had received the personal copy, signed copy by J.P.A. Subirai. It was called, Science and Culture. The third book was called, it was titled as The Other Mind of Europe, Goethe as a scientist. Goethe is pronounced in three ways. In English, they call it Goethe. In Hindi, they call him Goethe. And in German, they call him Goethe. It depends on you how you pronounce. That is a terribly important work, but there was no review of that book in any of the famous journals of sociology. And then he wrote a book which is very popular in Indian University, but in my opinion, that is a very weak book. And my very honest criticism of the book invited his wrath, and he disowned me. And the name of the book is Religion, Civil Society and the State, a study of Sikhism. I criticized him not only because he has not read the Guru Granth Sahib, but also because he had no knowledge about the Dasam Granth written by Guru Gobind Singh. Initially, he was furious and he said that, do you know Gurumukhi? I said, sir, I do not know Gurumukhi, but I know the method by which I can invite Guru Gobind Singh here. And he can give lecture, you will not be able to see his body, but you will be able to hear his voice. He was very furious. I said, sir, most humbly speaking, I have studied 45 years of Buddhist theology, and I know enough Kal Chakrayan to invite any dead body as ghost. For him, it was a bullshit. For me, it is not a bullshit. Anyway, his greatest contribution to Indian sociology was that he was the only person who honestly engaged with European modernity, his last major work before Mind and Society. Mind and Society is a compilation of his writings by Khalid Tayyabji, one of his older students. And you must read this book, but his fourth book. I do not consider a Sikhism book as a book, and that is at best a good pamphlet written by an academician at par with the Communist Manifesto of Marx and Engels. Anyway, and in case you have to compare and contrast utopias and political pamphlets, I think you should not read only the Communist Manifesto and J.P.S. Suberai's Sikhism book, but you should also read Indian Constitution written by Baba Saheb Ambedkar. That is a far profound sociological text on any country written till date. But J.P.S. Suberai was the first person. And I think I have not encountered any social scientist working in India who discusses about Zwingli. Although in Europe there are thousands of authors who have written about Zwingli and scientific church in Switzerland and Scandinavia, but he was the first person who brought the name of Zwingli as one of the three most important Protestant theologians active in 16th century Europe. First is well known, Martin Luther. Second, John Calvin. Third is Zwingli. He was the person who taught us that Zwingli is a very important figure to understand the European mind. J.P.S. Suberai was the first person who gave us a critical perspective on Bronisław Malinowski. J.P.S. Suberai was the first person who discusses how most classifications in social sciences are not correct. For most of us, Goethe or Goethe was a great poet. But he introduced to us, when I was a MA student, the botanist Goethe. Therefore, the same person as a profound botanist and a profound poet is something which is very rare, in the world history. Of course, we have Leonardo da Vinci. And therefore, some people, I'm coming to cinema thing. You see, whenever, yeah, I know. Sorry. Sorry. So far as cinema thing is concerned, why I was attracted to cinema as an alternative way of doing better sociology. For me, cinema is not something, less serious. Cinema for me has been as serious as sociological theory. Now, what is the difference between sociological writing and cinematic writing? In sociology, until this date, it is very difficult for a commoner to come at the top. How many Dalits or Ati Pichhada or Mahilas are at the forefront of sociological theorizing? But in cinema, you have a Dalit named Sailendra, who was not the first among equals, but far, far ahead than the rest. Cinema gave an opportunity to the downtrodden to rise at the top. Then Mahilas. In politics, of course, Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister of India in 1966. But that was because she was the daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru. Until Mayawati or Jayalalitha or Mamata Banerjee, women had not arrived in the public sphere of academic India. But in cinema, women arrived at the top in 1930s. And I named Jaddan Bai, the mother of Nargis. She was not only the music composer, she was also the writer, she was also the producer and director. Cinema provided an opportunity to the, deprived classes, deprived categories to rise at the top, which social sciences in India, due to colonial legacy, has not been able to do. Now, how to respond to Professor Vivek Kumar? I cannot respond to him because I never considered him as my colleague. I always considered him as younger brother. And two brothers can talk, at lunch or dinner or at breakfast. It is not necessary to make the very intimate personal
I'm
relationship.
asking for the benefit of the students. They don't know anything about the rasas. I'm telling you, and I think it will be a good feast for them.
Rasa for rasa.
Okay.
Yes, thoda sa.
There are 9 rasas. There are 9 rasas. The most important rasa is Singar. In bad English, it is called romance. Then there is Santaras. Santaras is, tranquility. Then Bhakti Ras, devotion. Karun Ras, compassion. Then Vibhats Ras. Vibhats is also a ras. How Vibhats can be translated into English? Pathos. Pathetic. Pathetic. Now, how these rasa? Because there is very little time, I'm just giving you some examples.
Yeah, that's what it is.
In this center, there were some teachers. When Vivek joined, or when Manoj joined, they were trying to be compassionate towards them, as if reservation is an act of compassion, not a constitutional right. Are you getting my point? When you are reading Max Weber on India or China, this is Vibhats Ras.
Because they never visited it.
When you are reading Karl Marx, this is Veer Ras. Theory of revolution, Veer Ras. एक उधर से आ रही है राजधानी एक्सप्रेस, मैं साइकिल पर बैठा हूं, ऐसा धक्का मारूंगा साइकिल से कि राजधानी एक्सप्रेस उड़ जाएगी। अच्छा लगता था यार जब हम जवान थे तो, लेकिन हुआ क्या?
सर वात्सल्य
रस. Nilika ji and me, she is a good mother to me. अब मदर क्या करती है, गलती करते हो माँ की नजर में तो रुलाती भी है, तुमको चोट लग जाती है तो खिलाती भी है, और जब बहुत दुखी हो तो हंसाती भी है।
सर रौद्र फिर क्या होगा सर?
अमित शर्मा फाइटिंग विद केल शर्मा।
श्रृंगार नहीं दिया आपने, श्रृंगार वाला एग्जाम्पल जरूरी है।
अपना
विलियम जोन्स राइजिंग इन लव विथ इंडिया। भाई ऐसा है, दूसरे समाज में दे फॉल इन लव, इट इज ओनली इन इंडिया दैट यू राइज इन लव।
okay.
So I think, sir, thank you so much for today's enlightening lecture. It was actually, yes, we want satsang, I think, पूरे हफ्ते चले, एक एक दिन हम लोग बैठे 2-2 घंटा 4-4 घंटा, तब कहीं से पूरा हो पाएगा, और फिर भी तिश्नगी रह जाएगी। तो आई थिंक वी हैव टेकन,
इट इज योर कॉपी।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू
सर,
तो
वो एक्चुअली टीचर्स डे है आज, और आपने ख्याल किया होगा कि आपके कुछ स्टूडेंट्स भी आए हैं,